at NTV.
Welcome back and many thanks for staying with us. My name is Romeo Busiku and we are getting into another conversation. Are small and medium-sized enterprises adjusting to the post-COVID-19 stress? Well, that is the $64,000 question that is going to be answered by John Walugembe, the Executive Director of the Federation of Small and Medium Enterprises. He joins me right now in studio. Very good morning.
Thank you, Romeo. Thank you for having me here.
It's always a pleasure, John, to have you in this studio.
Thank you so much. And our members, every time you invite me, our members are excited
indeed
that NTV can give us this platform.
So the viewer who is watching would like to know, how are the small and medium-sized enterprises adjusting to this COVID-19 stress?
So first of all, we want to appreciate government for slowly allowing the economy to reopen. By giving a clear date about when schools will be reopened, it means that many businesses that depend, because the education sector is a value chain. You have people who supply chalk, who supply food, who supply firewood to schools. So all these businesses will start to gain some form of momentum financially. So that is very good. The same with businesses in the tourism sector. The fact that the airport is being reopened means that a lot of tour guides, tour operators are going to get back in business. So overall, we are pleased that the economy is being reopened. And you see, the economy cannot operate fully if some parts of the economy are still closed. So once the economy is fully opened, then we can start on the road to recovery. I just want to highlight that we are not yet in the post-COVID scenario. We are in maybe the post-lockdown scenario. But our estimation is that recovery may take long, probably between 2 to 5 years. The impacts of this crisis have been very severe, not just on the local economy, but on the global economy.
So what will it take to ease the stress that you're actually grappling with, to fully reopen the economy?
Yes, that's the starting point, but do you also address the other constraints? Like the issues of liquidity. Businesses are struggling with cash inflows.
I see.
So how do we support businesses with low interest rate credit that they can use to meet their short-term obligations? We can also intervene in any kind of disagreements in the market, for instance, between landlords and tenants. You know, this is an issue that has not been resolved fully, and we believe it needs to be resolved in order to allow, because some businesses are still closed because of barriers that they have not yet cleared. So addressing some of those binding constraints, I think, is extremely critical to ensure that businesses get back on their feet.
But of course, there are some businesses that might never get back on their feet, John. Since March, we've noticed some people being laid off. Companies running out of money to run operations and so forth. So there is a likelihood that some businesses might never come back to life. What advice do you have for such people?
No, true. Some businesses have collapsed. We conducted a survey last week, and about of the 2,000 businesses we called, half of them, close to 1,000, had closed shop, or had changed business, or the entrepreneur had gone back into employment. So it's a fact of life that when situations like this come, some businesses will go out and some businesses will remain. That's not a bad thing necessarily, because in the vibrancy of an economy should be measured by how easy is it for people to start businesses and to exit. So if people are exiting because of a crisis, it's not the end of the world. And our advice to those entrepreneurs is that you're still there. You're still the entrepreneur. You can start another business, identify an opportunity that you can take advantage of. In this crisis, there's no room for sour graping because your business has gone under.
Of course, John, as we actually expand on the issue of these businesses running out of steam, URA is instead focusing on the same people, the small and medium-sized enterprises, to widen their tax base. What are the implications on all this on these people who are already grappling with no money?
No, we understand URA's predicament. First of all, URA does not make the laws. It's Parliament and government that sets a target and says we need this money. Obviously, government is also struggling because the remittances back home from people in the diaspora have reduced. Grants and loans from our development partners will reduce because they have their own crisis to handle at home. So it means government has increasingly to look at domestic revenue. At the same time, business is struggling. So you will have to kind of it's a very delicate balance that URA has to keep. Because by being so stringent and trying to squeeze the businesses so much, some of them may die. So URA needs to be very careful. If we see a business struggling, can we give it breathing space so that it can be revived before we start running after them again? This is very important, because when the economy, we are talking about resuscitating the economy. because the economy has been, some people are talking about revitalizing. For us, we're saying resuscitating.
Indeed,
because
it has been in deep slumber.
It has been in deep slumber because of the lockdown and all these other movements.
So literally, John, it's like this government or URA is milking a cow and not giving it grass. What are the likely implications of that?
No, that's not what we are saying. We are simply telling them, please don't milk the... It's a very bad time to milk the cow right now. Milk, of course, there are some cows that are doing well. Certain sectors are thriving. ICT-based sectors and so on are really doing well because people, you know, they're thriving in this situation. So they need to see how do you tax online businesses, for instance. But there are some sectors that are struggling. Tourism, education. Let's not run after these businesses. Let's give them breathing space.
So you would rather have online businesses taxed instead of these other businesses?
Of course, because business is going online. So URA has to figure out a way of following businesses online. Otherwise, if it's left behind and it's looking for money the traditional way, shop by shop, it's going to be struggling with shortfalls. So this economy is also doing well to a certain extent, but it's doing well in a different way. It's simply shifting online. So how should URA not be left behind? As we talk about digitalization, digitalization is not about telling people registering online things and things like that. They also need to find ways of ensuring that they tax businesses that are making money online. Yeah, they need to figure this out very, very critically.
Okay, what should government be doing to help revitalize or resuscitate these businesses that had died during COVID-19? What ought to be done?
Our visa, the stimulus package needs to be reviewed. It's not a one-off event, you know, so it needs to be reviewed what is working, what is not working. For instance, taxes were deferred for 3 months. Have they had a positive impact? If they haven't had and people do not yet have the capacity to fully pay, how can we come up with a certain, an additional relief for these businesses? The other issue is about UDB. Yes, we've allocated 1 trillion to UDB, but are people accessing it? Why aren't SMEs accessing this money? How can we help resolve that problem? How can we use alternative channels like SACCOs and Microfinance Support Center to ensure that this money gets down to the SMEs? So we believe these are questions that all of us stakeholders plus government.
So the government is grappling, the SMEs are also grappling, everybody is grappling. I'm looking at an SME whose business died on the ground, and this person decided to go online, and then your A said, no, we are also taxing you online.
No, to the extent that they are making money online. I think SMEs need to know that they need to make their fair contribution. I cannot come here and advocate for you not to pay tax. This can't work. What you are saying is that pay your fair share. We don't want URA to exploit you, neither do we want you to exploit the country.
But as a recommendation, John, would you actually call for government to bankroll these companies to get back on their feet with some little money?
If possible, government, if possible. For instance, the EU is rolling out a grant, a partial grant, partial loan scheme with UDB for the tourism sector. Why can't government borrow a leaf for the SME sector? Yeah, so not just loans, but probably a hybrid of a loan and a grant to support SMEs.
Ladies and gentlemen, John Walugembe, the Executive Director for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises. Like I said, always a pleasure. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having me here.
And you're still watching Morning at NTV. We are going to run a short breather, but when we do return, we're having a conversation on ending gender-based violence from Uganda as a whole. We'll be right